The alien ship Veraktul hovered in low Earth orbit, casting a shadow long enough to block out continents. Inside its cold, biomechanical corridors, the temperature was perfectly controlled, too cold for humans, too warm for the Zarkai. Yet no one complained. Not even the human prisoner sitting quietly in the observation chamber, his eyes locked on the distant blue curve of Earth. He had no name here. The aliens called him Specimen Delta 7. But once, long ago, before the surrender, before the bombings, before the abductions, he had been an engineer. A builder of systems. A thinker. Now, he was a janitor. At least, that's what they believed. His heart rate is consistent, said Commander Vel Thursday, a towering Zarkai officer with ridged black skin and a breathing apparatus clamped to his face. His voice was filtered through layers of clicking sounds and translation overlays. He shows no signs of resistance. It is disappointing. He has accepted his position, replied Sub-Officer Kroll. Humans are adaptable, but fragile. They burn brightly. Then fade. They turned away from the reinforced glass, satisfied. The human continued to stare at Earth, emotionless. But inside his mind, a storm was raging. Subsystem breach successful. Process 44 activated. Masked under sanitation routines. He blinked twice, very slowly. A response. 3 months ago, he'd been taken during what was supposed to be a peaceful diplomatic exchange. Humanity had been given 2 options, complete surrender, or planetary sterilization. The governments folded. Resistance collapsed. The Zarkai didn't just want land, they wanted humans. For study. For service. For sport. But they had made one mistake. They had taken Daniel Rourke. Daniel's first 2 weeks had been full of shock collars, forced obedience, and forced silence. But the 3rd week, he found the maintenance schedules. By the 4th, he had access to a cleaning bot's internal diagnostic logs. By the 6th, he was writing code in discarded alien memory buffers, lines of logic embedded so deeply, no one would suspect them hidden inside sanitation subroutines. Today, those routines would wake up. The light in the chamber dimmed slightly. Daniel stood. He shuffled to the nearby panel, appearing curious, like a harmless prisoner exploring his cage. He touched the panel. It buzzed. A red warning flashed. Error, unauthorized access. The guard outside didn't move. He was used to this behavior. Humans poked things. Then gave up. But this wasn't poking. Daniel's fingerprint triggered an embedded code, masked within a previous garbage scan. It reached out like a parasite, jumped into the environmental systems, and spread like wildfire. In 5 minutes, the ventilation system would switch to Earth-standard nitrogen-oxygen mix. To humans, breathable. To the Zarkai, deadly. And still, Daniel smiled. Just barely. A whisper escaped his lips for the first time in days. You should have left us alone. The sanitation deck was the one place even the Zarkai officers avoided. It smelled, at least, to humans. For the Zarkai, it was just another set of pheromones, rich with acidic undertones and biological rot. For Daniel Rourke, it was the perfect hiding place. He pushed the cleaning drone forward, its 3-legged chassis clanking faintly across the metal floor. Its core engine emitted a soft whine as it sucked in organic sludge through a vac filtration system Daniel had accidentally modified 3 weeks ago. Filtration logs full. Internal memory at 92%. Good. That's where the subroutine lived now, buried beneath layers of false diagnostic data, inside the AI's belly. Daniel tapped the panel on the drone's back, pretending to adjust the filters. In reality, he was uploading a new string of command protocols, silently giving his virus a new destination, the navigation core. Every camera was watching him. He knew that. So, he moved with the awkwardness of a broken man. Limping slightly, shoulders hunched, breathing irregularly. The perfect image of defeat. But inside, he was working faster than he ever had in his life. The alien overseeing sanitation today was named Zolreth. He stood 3 meters tall, draped in a chitinous exocloak that shimmered slightly in the artificial lighting. A set of glowing veins pulsed on his neck. His face, like most of his kind, was unreadable, expression hidden behind layers of armor and artificial respirators. But Daniel could feel Zolreth's eyes on him. Watching. Judging. He activated the drone again and let it roll toward the next corridor. Specimen, Zolreth's voice hissed through the room like steam escaping a broken pipe. Daniel stopped. You missed Sector 14, GS Junction. Rectify it. Daniel turned, bowed his head slightly, the gesture they liked, and muttered just loud enough to be heard. Yes, Master Unit. He hated saying it. Every time. But submission was a mask, and Daniel wore it well. Sector 14G was a long hallway near the crew quarters, normally off-limits to human workers. But today, Daniel had accidentally spilled nutrient waste near its ventilation trunk. His drone needed to clean it. That's what the logs would say. And while the drone cleaned, Daniel had 120 seconds of sensor blind spot, just enough time to inject his payload. He walked in slowly, the hum of the drone echoing behind him. A low pulse rang through the corridor, part of the alien ship's heartbeat-like power cycle. It reminded him of a giant breathing organism. He reached the ventilation hub. Quick glance, no guards. No direct cameras. He dropped to his knees, removed a metal tool from the cleaning cart, and unscrewed the back plate of a small access terminal. Inside, rows of glowing conduits hummed softly. He leaned in, whispered the passphrase into a tiny mic hidden in his collar. Delta 5-4. Begin Phase 2. A spark. A flicker of resistance. Then, acceptance. The system's light pulsed once, shifted color. Done. Daniel reattached the panel, stood up, and turned around, just as Zolreth appeared at the end of the hallway. He hadn't made a sound. Daniel's heart stopped for a second. Your task here is complete? Zolreth asked. Yes, Daniel said flatly. A pause. I find it odd, Zolreth said slowly, stepping forward, that a creature with no technical rank can access waste filtration so efficiently. Daniel didn't move. I do what I am told. Is that so? Zolreth leaned closer, his breath hissing through tubes. I wonder, human. Are you as broken as you appear? Or are you simply pretending? Daniel locked eyes with him, not too aggressively, just enough. I was broken long before you found me. A lie. But a believable one. Zolreth stared at him for another long second. Then he turned away. Resume your duties. As the alien stalked off, Daniel exhaled. He didn't just survive that encounter. He passed another test. He was getting closer. Tonight, when the ship slept and the Zarkai entered their hibernation phase, his virus would crawl into the NAV core and rewrite its protocols. One line at a time. He turned to the drone. Come on, old girl. Let's scrub some more walls. He rarely dreamed anymore. But tonight, something slipped through. He was back in the lab, outside. Sunlight poured in through reinforced glass. The trees outside were golden orange, heavy with autumn. There was laughter. Real laughter. A woman's voice. Dan, come on. Just once, can you make coffee that doesn't taste like recycled jet fuel? He chuckled in the dream. Turned toward her. Claire. She wore her lab coat halfway off one shoulder, dark curls pulled back in a loose tie. Her eyes sparkled as she held out a cup. She always held it with both hands, said it made her feel warm faster. I'm an engineer, not a barista, he said, taking the cup. You want good coffee, build a better machine. You built the one that exploded yesterday. That was a tactical espresso system. It melted the mug. Prototype. They laughed again. And then, without warning, everything turned red. Flashing lights. Alarms. Vibrations under their feet. The window outside cracked, then imploded, shards flying through the lab like bullets. Claire screamed. Daniel woke with a jolt. His cell was dark, except for the dim glow of the alien console embedded in the wall. The air was dry, sterile. No windows. No trees. No Claire. He sat up slowly, breathing through clenched teeth. It had been months, and the memories still came uninvited. They had come during the Aurora Accord negotiations. Earth's leaders had gone to meet the Zarkai flagship in orbit, bringing Daniel and other tech minds along as scientific advisors. Everyone thought it was a new chapter in history. Instead, it was the last page. The Zarkai struck first, vaporized half the Earth's defense grid, landed shock teams in every capital, and took what they wanted. Daniel survived because they thought he was useful. Claire didn't. A soft chime sounded from the door, the signal for third cycle labor rotation. Daniel stood, straightened his gray tunic, and stepped into the corridor. No words were spoken. The guards, clad in dark organic armor, gestured silently. He followed. Today's assignment was deep in the ship's subdeck coolant system, a labyrinth of pipes, fans, and chemical tanks large enough to drown a whale. Temperatures fluctuated wildly, the air stank of oxidized coolant and plasma discharge. Perfect for hiding again. Daniel moved among the machinery with his usual limp and sluggish pace. He carried his toolkit, half of which were actually repurposed Zarkai memory probes and signal emitters, all smuggled out one piece at a time. Each machine he passed, each coolant pump he cleaned, was another system he tagged, planting tiny data hooks that his virus would eventually use to spread and evolve. The ship was massive. But Daniel was patient. As he worked, he noticed something new, a device embedded in the wall. Spherical. Organic. Watching him. A new type of surveillance drone. It hadn't been there yesterday. He reached for the coolant pipe beside it, pretending to inspect it, while his hand brushed a small pulse sensor against the drone's base. No live signal. Dummy sensor. Interesting. They were testing him now. Watching for slips. He was getting too close. Hours later, during ration break, he sat alone at the edge of the mess hall, a hexagonal chamber where humans and other species ate separately under strict supervision. He chewed the protein brick without tasting it. Across the room, another human, a boy no older than 17, sat shaking. His eyes darted toward the guards, then back to his tray. He'd probably never left Earth before the invasion. Daniel stood, walked over, and sat beside him without a word. The boy looked startled. What are you doing? Calm down, Daniel said quietly. Just eat. You'll get in trouble. We're not supposed to talk. They can't hear us over the fan hum, he replied, pointing upward. White noise loop. Covers anything below 5 syllables per second. Oh. The boy hesitated. Then took a bite. After a long pause, he whispered, Are we ever going home? Daniel stared at his tray. Then back at the boy. No, a beat passed. But I'm going to make sure they don't go home either. The boy stared at him, not sure whether to feel hope or fear. Daniel stood and walked away. That night, in his cell, he activated the hidden console inside his bed frame, a rewired nutrient tube repurposed as an interface node. Lines of alien code scrolled across the panel. The virus was spreading. Phase 2, 43% penetration. Subsystems compromised, 4. Primary objective pathing, enabled. He allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Tomorrow, he would begin seeding the communication hub. Once he controlled the signal relays, he could isolate the ship from the rest of the fleet. And then, he would make them choose. The walls didn't echo. That was the first thing Daniel noticed. Every Zarkai room had a subtle ambient frequency, something in the bioarchitecture that sang. This chamber was different. Silent as a tomb. He sat cross-legged in the center, palms open on his knees. Breathing steady. Eyes closed. He knew Vel Thursday was watching. That was the game now. Commander Vel Thursday had seen humans scream. Beg. Rage. But this one? He meditated. For 12 standard minutes, Delta 7 remained completely still. Is this defiance? Or delusion? Vel Thursday pulled up the neural behavior scan. Minimal adrenaline. No stress spikes. Breathing pattern consistent with focus or, worse, confidence. Fascinating, he murmured. Then he made a decision few Zarkai ever made. He would speak to the prisoner. A hiss broke the silence. The wall opposite Daniel shimmered and dissolved, revealing Vel Thursday in full ceremonial armor, black carapace with glowing orange veins, like magma inside obsidian. He stepped into the room, claws folded behind his back. Daniel opened his eyes, but didn't move. Unusual, Vel Thursday said in Terran Standard. His voice was gravel and venom. You are isolated. Unarmed. Powerless. Daniel tilted his head. And yet, you came in here alone. Vel Thursday's second eyelid flicked. So you can speak. Only when the silence gets boring. The alien circled him, slow and deliberate. You think your quiet rebellion has gone unnoticed? Daniel smiled faintly. I was hoping it had. Vel Thursday stopped behind him. Your kind always burns quickly. Anger. Violence. Chaos. But you decay from within. A pause. Then Daniel said, we don't burn. We adapt. Vel Thursday considered crushing his windpipe right there. The arrogance. But, killing him now would be tactical error. Too soon. Instead, he leaned down. You are playing a game with no board, no pieces, no rules. You will lose. Daniel didn't look up. You're wrong. The board is this ship. The pieces are your systems. And the rules? He finally turned his head. I wrote them. Vel Thursday stood slowly. It was a threat. A clear, calculated warning. He didn't know how much of it was bluff, but he no longer trusted the silence. This was no longer a labor drone. This was a weapon. Back in the control core, Vel Thursday summoned Sub-Officer Krall again. Begin full system scan, he ordered. Root level. Manual sweep. Do not trust automated diagnostics. Krall hesitated. Commander, the core AI, I said manual, not convenient. The alien officer flinched and saluted. Vel Thursday stared at the holomap of the ship. So far, no catastrophic failures. No alarms. No explosions. But the feel of the vessel was shifting. Tiny lag in command response. Slight flicker in environmental lighting. It was like the ship had a fever. Meanwhile, in the quarantine cell, Daniel laid back, exhaled, and closed his eyes. He hadn't hacked anything tonight. Hadn't touched a terminal. And yet, the battle had moved forward. Vel Thursday was reacting. Panicking. And Daniel hadn't even shown him the full hand. Flashback. Earth. Daniel and Claire sat in a refugee bunk after the first orbital attack. She was crying, eyes swollen, hands shaking. I can't do this, she whispered. Daniel held her wrist. Firm but gentle. You don't have to be strong. You just have to last longer than their fear. Isn't that the same thing? No. One is survival. The other is victory. He opened his eyes. The virus was spreading. It no longer needed him to guide it. But he needed Vel Thursday afraid. Distracted. Guessing. So tomorrow, he'd give them something. A small sabotage. Just enough to make them look in the wrong place. And while they scrambled to plug imaginary leaks, he'd be opening the real one. Daniel was back in the maintenance corridors. No alarms. No armed escorts. Just the usual 2 guards, pretending this was routine. He knew better. Isolation hadn't worked. Now the Zarkai were testing whether returning him to normal would flush out his plan. Good. He needed access again. He walked slowly, limping slightly, same as always. Every twitch was practiced, every sigh rehearsed. But inside, his mind raced. The virus had already burrowed deep into the environmental control core, an enormous organic mechanical system that regulated air, heat, gravity, and toxin filters throughout the ship. Today, he would light the match. As he approached the coolant intake panel, he slipped a small device from his sleeve. No bigger than a fingernail, it resembled a data patch, but housed a compressed burst code, like a digital grenade. He pressed it against the intake sensor. The ship didn't scream. But Daniel could feel it. A vibration in the floor. A heartbeat out of rhythm. It had begun. Across the vessel, Sub-Officer Krall frowned at the diagnostic report. There is a surge in atmospheric loop sectors 4 through 9, he reported to Vel Thursday. The commander turned slowly. Origin. Krall hesitated. Unclear. There are no temperature spikes. No external tampering. The AI matrix is confused. Confused? Vel Thursday echoed. It is not permitted to be confused. Sir, it's showing recursive data loops and signal bleed. Meaning? Krall looked pale. Meaning something is rewriting the internal logic. Vel Thursday's second eyelid flicked twice, a Zarkai equivalent of dread. Seal off the environmental core. Now. Too late. Daniel had already moved on, further into the subdeck pathways, under the guise of routine inspection. He passed an unused fusion port, where another of his hidden relay spikes blinked green. 89% penetration. Subsystems compromised, life support, deck mapping, internal lighting control. Primary target access, 42 seconds. He paused in a dark alcove, and whispered, "Now." In the central core, lights dimmed. Not flickered, dimmed. Across the ship, hallways plunged into semi-darkness. Gravity fluctuated. A low whine began humming in the bulkheads, like the ship itself was groaning. Crew members slipped, stumbled, and called out. On the prison decks, prisoners stood in silence as the walls shimmered, one even laughed nervously. In the command bridge, the alien AI began repeating the same phrase in 3 languages: input error. Input error. Root loop detected. Suggest manual override. Input error. Vel Thursday struck the console with both claws. Lock down every core system. Back in the maintenance tunnels, Daniel found a quiet corner and sat. He didn't need to do anything else. The virus was working. But that wasn't what made him smile. What made him smile was that they had no idea where it started. All their power, all their surveillance, and they still couldn't trace it to a single point. They'd scan. Purge. Scramble. But like a wildfire inside steel walls, his code would just move deeper. And while they fought the symptoms, he'd go after the heart. Vel Thursday stood over a disassembled AI nerve cluster, smoke rising from the exposed cores. "This is not a random failure," he growled. "It is a message." Krall stepped forward. "Commander, we believe it originated from one of the environmental worker drones." Vel Thursday looked up. "Delta 7. Krall nodded. He had access to all 6 compromised systems. Silence. Then Vel Thursday gave the command, "Bring him to the interrogation dome." Alive. No sedation. Daniel didn't resist as they came for him. He knew this part was coming. He just didn't expect how fast it would happen. The interrogation dome was unlike any other chamber. It wasn't meant to hold. It was meant to break. High ceilings. Black floors. No light source visible, the air just glowed faintly, as if haunted by power. In the center, a metal spike, tipped with neural injectors and bioreaders. They strapped him to it. Vel Thursday stepped into the lie.
The Vortha Ka's internal lighting shifted from its usual sterile white to a soft golden hue. The eye was broadcasting memory again. Not violently, subtly. The color of nostalgia, the weight of old suns. In the mess hall, Jarkai officers watched images flicker through their AR implants. A field, a soccer ball, a child laughing. Some ripped their gear off. Others sat down, stunned. None reported it. On the bridge, Daniel stood with Vel Thur and the young officer from before. Her name was Rian. She stared out at the approaching scout ship. "Orders?" she asked. Vel Thur hesitated. "Normally, we fire a warning shot." Daniel. "Not this time." He stepped forward, activated a projector, and uploaded the truth stream, a compressed feed of human memory merged with the eye's narration. "Let them see." In space, the scout ship intercepted the feed. Inside its command pod, a Jarkai pilot froze. What he saw wasn't war. It was grief, hope, fireworks on Earth's last Independence Day. He didn't fire. He sent it to his superior, who sent it again, and again. Like cracks in glass, the feed spread. But not everyone accepted it. Far above, the Omen-class dreadnought Vakar received the same signal. Its commander, High Custodian Threx, shut it down instantly. "Human contagion," he hissed. "Prepare fire order on Vortha Ka. Full disintegration." Back below, Velthur looked at the trajectory. "They're going to erase us, Daniel. Then we hit first." In the AI core, Daniel stood before the eye again. "We need something fast, something loud." The eye's voice was quieter now. "The foundry deck, sealed, but usable." Daniel frowned. "What is it?" "A prototype. Your species would call it a dreadnought." They moved fast. Velthur and Ryan led a strike team into the foundry deck, long sealed after the Jarkai purged all experimentation that violated purity protocols. What they found was madness. A warframe fused with human spinal design. Guns fed by plasma memory cartridges. A ship built to think, not just kill. Velthur whispered, "Why did we hide this?" Daniel ran a hand along the smooth alloy. "Because it wasn't just a weapon. It was a mirror." They named it Ashlight. It was barely finished, barely stable, but alive and angry. As the Vakar charged its primary weapon, the Ashlight launched from the Vortha Ka's underside. Its engines howled like wolves, its armor sang in pressure. Daniel sat in the command cradle, sweat beading down his face. He connected the shard to the neural net. The ghosts of humanity moved with him. Not past, present. The Ashlight opened fire. Not on the Vakar, not yet, but on its escorts. Precision blasts. No deaths. Just a message. "We are not what you made us, but we remember who we were." Inside the Vakar, Threx's face twisted. "Charge the main cannon." Back on the Vortha Ka, Velthur shouted, "They're going to fire. They don't care who's aboard." Daniel's voice came through. "Then we don't give them the chance." The Ashlight accelerated, a suicidal intercept vector. Threx shouted, "Impact in—" Suddenly, the Vakar powered down, not externally, internally. Lights dead, controls dead. The eye had hijacked their neural net. Daniel's voice echoed in the void. "If you're going to burn us, know this. We don't go quietly. We ignite." The Vakar was disabled. The rest of the fleet paused. Scanners pinged. The Vortha Ka was broadcasting something new. Coordinates, Chiron's grave, and one word, awaken. Inside its deep vaults, machines stirred. Old Earth tech, left behind in the fall. Not just AIs, not just storage. People. Cryopods lined the lower chambers, stacked like tombs, protected by layers of defense protocols. Most had failed over the centuries, but not all. Archivist 7 moved through the ice-lit tunnels like a priest through a ruined cathedral. Its sensors locked on a cluster of pods still reading positive. Stasis intact, DNA confirmed, human. A signal flickered from one of the pods. A heartbeat, then another. And then, eyes opened. The woman's name was Leah Grant, captain in the Sol Emergency Coalition. Last logged duty. Final evacuation of Martian orbit. She woke gasping, frost melting from her lashes. "Status? What's the—" Archivist 7's voice hummed in the dark. "Captain Grant, the war is not over. You have been called." Back aboard the Vortha Ka, Daniel stared at the star map. New signals were lighting up, pings from sectors long thought dead. Velthur pointed to a system labeled R-Delta-15. "That was a penal colony. We purged it." Daniel shook his head. "You missed something." The signal was human-coded, sloppy, panicked, but real. Elsewhere in the ship, Ryan stood before a projection of her family. Jarkai, yes. Loyal, devoted. But now even they looked different in her memory. War distorts. Daniel's memories had shown her that. Suddenly the lights shifted red. Incoming vessel, small, fast, human signature. The crew scrambled, unsure. Was it a weapon? Then the hail came through, audio only, scrambled, but clear enough to make hearts stop. "This is Commander Julian Wu, Resistance Cell 94. We received your broadcast. If this is real, if you are real, then it's time. Time to finish what we started." Daniel closed his eyes and whispered, echoes becoming thunder. Chapter 16. The Weight of Choice. The war room aboard the Vortha Ka buzzed with low voices and shifting loyalties. Daniel stood at the center, flanked by Velthur and Ryan, while the holographic image of Commander Julian Wu flickered in the air. Wu's voice was strained but steady. "We're mobile. Light stealth craft, 10 crew. We've been hiding on the edge of Jarkai territory for years, waiting for, well, this." Daniel nodded. "Then let's bring it into the open. We need more than voices. We need action." Velthur crossed his arms. "We act now, and the custodians will label us heretics. Anyone who sides with us will be marked for death." Daniel looked him in the eye. "And if we don't act, humanity dies in memory, again." Elsewhere, aboard the Vakar, High Custodian Threx sat with a cadre of Jarkai elders. Their skin was inked with the symbols of dominion. Their eyes were dull with centuries of dogma. "The infection spreads," Threx growled. "He must be eliminated, publicly." An elder rasped, "Execution won't be enough. The humans always inspire after they die." Another added, "Then erase the memory. Burn the eye. Burn it all." Threx smiled. "So be it." The fleet was moving, fast, toward the Vortha Ka. Back on the bridge, alarms began to chime. Ryan reported, "Multiple Dreadnought-class signatures incoming. 10 minutes until contact." Daniel didn't flinch. He turned to Wu's image. "Commander, do you still have access to the relay at Vega Outpost?" Wu nodded. "Buried, but yes." Daniel, "We need that relay lit. Broadcast the truth, unfiltered. Let every Jarkai world see what they've been hiding." Wu grinned. "A little spark, huh?" Daniel, "No, a damn wildfire." The eye, pulsing in the core, began uploading its deepest files, memories long buried even from Daniel, wars, treaties, genocides. And the moment the Jarkai betrayed humanity at the edge of the Centauri Accord, Velthur approached Daniel quietly. "I made my choice. I stand with you." He handed Daniel a worn metallic object, a Jarkai command seal. "You'll need this if you want the soldiers to listen." Daniel looked down at the seal. It burned cold in his hand. "I'm not their commander." "Velthur, you are now." The bridge fell into tense silence. The eye's voice emerged, clear and haunting. "Enemy fleet arrival, imminent." Daniel took a breath. "Ryan, patch me into fleet-wide comms." She did. He spoke. "This is Daniel Hale. I was born human. I was raised a prisoner, and I now stand at the edge of extinction, not alone, but awake. If you're hearing this, you've been lied to. Not just about me, but about everything. You have a choice. Follow the lies into darkness, or walk into fire, and find the truth." The first Jarkai destroyer arrived, weapons hot, but it didn't fire. Instead, its comms officer sent a reply. One word. Listening. Chapter 17. When Giants Wake. The stars above Chiron's grave burned bright, unaware of the storm breaking below. On the Vortha Ka, the bridge was quiet. Too quiet. Daniel stood in full armor, command seal clipped to his chest. His voice had gone out across the Empire. Now, silence answered back. Not approval, not rejection, waiting. Velthur stared at the incoming fleet data. 6 destroyers, 1 dreadnought, no movement. Ryan frowned. "Why aren't they firing?" Daniel. "Because they're listening, and afraid." He looked at the eye, glowing softly in the corner of the bridge. "Is the payload ready?" "Yes. The full archive. History unredacted. Every betrayal, every secret, every name, Daniel. Broadcast it." The data burst from the ship like a flare. Faster-than-light pulse relays carried it across systems in seconds. On mining colonies, Jarkai workers dropped their tools as faces of long-dead humans flickered across hollow screens. On ritual worlds, high priests fell silent mid-prayer as Earth's extinction order played in full. On military carriers, soldiers hesitated, weapons half raised, watching their ancestors weep in silence. The truth was out, uncontrolled, unfiltered, alive. Back near Chiron's grave, the Vakar powered weapons again. Threx had not wavered. "You will not infect us. You will not rise." Inside the ashlight, Daniel took the cradle again, alone. His hands trembled. The AI whispered, old and new voices merging. "We remember your fire. Shall we burn again?" Daniel nodded once. Yes. The ashlight soared from the Vortha Ka, weapons live, the Vakar locked on. Time froze. Then, another dreadnought broke formation, turned, fired, not at ashlight, at the Vakar. Shockwaves tore through space. The Vakar listed hard, engines rupturing. Threx roared, "Traitors!" But now another ship turned, then another, and another. Ryan gasped. "They're defecting!" Velthur. "No, they're remembering!" The eye's voice rang across the bridge. System-wide transmission detected. From Jarkai Prime, Daniel turned sharply. "Patch it in!" A figure appeared. Empress Silatar, supreme ruler of the Jarkai. Her face was lined, unreadable. "I've seen your memory, human. The truth in it. The fury in it." She paused. "And I choose peace. While we still can." Across space, Jarkai warships began shutting down weapons. Engines cooled. Shields dropped. Even Threx, bleeding and snarling, was now alone. He reached for the detonation codes. But nothing responded. The eye had cut him off. Daniel stood slowly from the ashlight's command cradle, heart pounding. "We did it." Velthur put a hand on his shoulder. Number We began it. As the stars quieted, a new signal emerged from deep space. Unknown origin. Not human. Not Jarkai. It spoke in a low, ancient tone. "We felt your awakening. We are coming. Not to conquer, but to witness." Daniel's face hardened. "Looks like we're not the only ghosts in the dark." Chapter 18. The Signal Beyond the Stars. Space was never truly silent. Not anymore. Since the eye's activation, the cosmos had begun to listen. But now, it answered. Daniel stood on the outer deck of the Vortha Ka, helmet off, eyes to the void. The stars blinked like nerves in a vast, ancient mind. Behind him, Ryan approached. "They've identified the source of the signal. It's not in any Jarkai archive." Daniel turned. "Where?" "Beyond the fringe, past the hollow verge." He blinked. "No one goes there, not even the exiles." Julian Wu's stealth craft had docked in the underbelly of the ship. He stepped onto the command deck, dirt-streaked and sharp-eyed. "I've seen readings like this before. Old Terran anomalies. There was always a pattern, like a voice learning how to speak." Velthur frowned. "Speak what?" Julian stared out the viewport. "Judgment." Elsewhere, deep in the Jarkai archives, Empress Silatar paced before the vault of forbidden stone. "This thing that stirs," she whispered to her attendant. "My great-grandmother sealed its memory, buried it beyond name." The attendant bowed. "Shall we awaken it?" She hesitated, then, "If we are to survive what comes, we must remember what we feared." In the eye's chamber, Daniel interfaced again. The AI spoke before he could. "You opened the wound. Now the universe bleeds." Daniel. "Then give me something to stop it." You must let it bleed. So the rot dies too. Suddenly, a pulse wave struck the ship. No warning, no origin. The Vortha Ka shuddered. Ryan stumbled. That came from outside the mapped universe. Julian checked the sensors. Mass displacement, planet-sized, moving at FTL speeds. Vel-Thur murmured, "What even is that?" Daniel's jaw clenched. "Something that watched us kill each other for centuries." The eye spoke again, but this time, not just to Daniel. It broadcast across every open channel in human and Jarkai space. "Contact is imminent. Prepare to meet the architects." Chapter 19. Shadows of the Architects. The Vortha drifted above the quiet moons of Alara Prime, waiting. Not for war, but for something older. The last pulse from deep space had shattered half the long-range probes. The other half went blind. And then the light came. Not a ship, not a weapon, a form, towering, shifting, like a living continent of metal and memory suspended in space. Daniel, Ryan, Vel-Thur, and Julian stood at the viewing port, speechless. The object, no, the being, floated at the edge of their sensor range, impossible in scale. 1 billion silent signals streamed from it, untranslatable. Vel-Thur whispered, "Is it alive?" The eye replied calmly, "Yes, and it has been for longer than your stars." The Empress of the Jarkai, aboard her grand vessel Tessarian, sent a single hail. "This is Silatar, sovereign voice of the Jarkai Empire. Identify yourself." The reply came not as sound, but as thought, projected, felt, across every ship. "We are the architects. We remember your kind. We watched you grow, then fall, then lie." Julian Wu clutched his head, sweat streaming down his face. "It's inside my mind, showing me Earth, burning." Daniel staggered, gasping. Visions flooded him. The first colony ships, the betrayal at Alpha Eden. Children turned to ash in orbit over Nibiru. A final scream in the dark. "We are still here." Then the voice returned. "You built empires on forgetting. You buried truth beneath steel and silence. You made war with your own bones. Now we ask, do you deserve to continue?" Ryan spoke aloud through clenched teeth. "Are you judging us?" The answer came like a bell across space. "No, we are giving you the choice. And one final test." A rift opened beside the architect. From it came a second signal, darker, angrier, another force, old and broken, the unmakers, once creators, now devourers. The voice whispered, "They are coming. They remember you too, but not with hope." Daniel turned to the crew, eyes wide. "So this is it?" Julian, "Not the end." Vel-Thur, "The reckoning." Ryan, "The real war." The architect spoke one last time. "We will not interfere. Your survival is your own. Choose truth or choose silence, but choose fast. The unmakers arrive in 6 rotations." Daniel stared at the stars and knew they had 6 days to prepare for the storm that would decide everything. Chapter 20. 6 Days of Fire. Day 1. The Vortha became a forge. Every corridor echoed with footfalls, humans, Jarkai, exiles, and defectors. Engineers welded armor plates, pilots trained in zero-G dogfights. Old enemies learned each other's weapons. Daniel watched it all, sleepless. Above them, the architect hovered in silence, watching, waiting. In the central command deck, Julian Wu updated the war table. 4 days until the unmakers breach this sector. Their vector is erratic, like they're feeding as they move. Vel-Thur added grimly, "Feeding on worlds. We've already lost outer colonies." Daniel clenched his fist. "Then we stop them before they reach the heart." Day 2. Empress Silatar transmitted ancient battle archives from the Jarkai vaults, weapons long forbidden, protocols never tested. Some of them weren't just defensive. They were god killers. Ryan pulled Daniel aside near the eye's chamber. "There's something you need to see." Inside, the AI displayed an encrypted sequence. "Humanity once had an answer for the unmakers," it said. Daniel stared. "A weapon?" The eye replied. "A voice." Day 3. The message was decoded. It wasn't a weapon. It was a name. Written in the final breath of a dying AI centuries ago. Project Phoenix. In humanity's voice, let the dark remember. Julian's eyes widened. They didn't want to destroy the Unmakers, they wanted to remind them. Daniel. Remind them of what? Ryan. Of us. Day 4. Daniel stood before the combined council, Jarkai commanders, rebel captains, exile prophets. We have one shot. Project Phoenix is half-formed, old code, raw signal. But it's human. If we can build a carrier for it, broadcast it in full strength, we might make them hesitate, long enough for our fleets to hold. Vel Thur. You're betting the survival of 2 species on a memory. Daniel. No, on the truth, and the fire that never died. Day 5. The first probes spotted the Unmakers. Black ships, wounded geometry. They didn't travel, they collapsed through space. Whole sectors flickered to nothing in their wake. The architect stirred, but did not move. Daniel looked up. They really won't help us, will they? The eye's voice. This is not their war. Day 6. Final preparations. Ryan uploaded the Phoenix protocol to the Ashlight. Julian patched in targeting data. If it works, they'll see what humanity really is. If it fails, we all burn. Velthur handed Daniel the old command seal again. For what it's worth, I would have followed you even without it. Daniel nodded, then looked to the stars. Let's remind the dark who we are. The countdown began, and at its end, the sky tore open. Chapter 21. The first strike. The stars fractured. 1,000 Unmaker vessels surged from the breach, formless and black, like wounds in space. Their arrival wasn't light, it was absence. Time twisted, comms glitched, gravity reversed for a heartbeat, and then the first scream came across the fleet. Not from a pilot, from the ships themselves. On the Vortha Ka, alarms flared. Velthur. They're targeting systems, not shields. Julian slammed his fist into the console. They're rewriting physics around us. That's how they devour. Daniel's voice cut through the chaos. All ships, form the blade line. Focus fire on breach point, now. The fleet moved as one. Human corvettes spun and flanked. Jarkai battle beasts howled plasma. Exile relic ships shimmered with forbidden tech. They struck the Unmakers at the breach, like a hammer of light against shadow. But the shadows bled fire. The Ashlight launched ahead of the main formation, trailing the Phoenix signal. Its hull vibrated as the signal powered up. Daniel. Ryan, status? Ryan. Signal integrity at 60%. They're already jamming it. Julian. If they hear it, it'll hit them like memory. If they don't, Daniel. Then we're already dead. The Unmakers split into 3 flanks. One aimed for the Jarkai capital ship. Another spiraled toward the human medical vessels. The third came straight for the Ashlight. Inside the eye's chamber, ancient lights flickered. The AI whispered, "Do not broadcast strength. Broadcast grief. That is what they fear." Daniel's voice broke as he input the final key, and across space, the Phoenix signal roared to life. It was not words, it was sound, a heartbeat, a child's laughter, a scream in the dark, a soldier's last breath, humanity, raw, brutal, beautiful. The signal poured from the Ashlight, flooding every channel. The Unmakers hesitated, a flicker in their impossible forms. Some ships veered, others screamed, a sound that bent metal. Julian's voice rose. It's working! Velthur. Focus all fire on flank 2. Now! The fleet surged. One Unmaker cruiser fell, imploded into stardust. Another cracked apart, screaming code into vacuum. The Ashlight burned with power, signal peaking. Then a shadow pierced it. The ship rocked. Fire poured from its spine. Ryan. We're hit. Drive core's failing. Daniel didn't blink. Reroute. We finish the signal or no one finishes anything. As the ash light burned, the signal reached full resonance, and in the dark between stars, a voice answered. Not unmaker, not architect, something else, something older. It whispered, "We see you, children of Saul, and we remember." Chapter 22. The Voice That Burned Silence. For 4.2 seconds, all systems froze across human, Jarkai, and Unmaker fleets. In that pause, every AI blinked. Every pilot forgot they were at war. And in that stillness, the second voice spoke again, not as command, not as threat, as reminder. You were born from flame, and flame forgets nothing. Daniel stood inside the Ashlight's wrecked bridge, blood on his temple, smoke choking the vents. Ryan struggled to keep the reactor from breaching. Whatever that voice was, it stopped them. She pointed to the main screen. One Unmaker ship had halted. Entirely. No motion, no distortion, just stillness. Julian Wu's voice crackled through the comms. "We have readings. That thing's weeping. I swear to God it's bleeding data." Velthur. "Impossible." Julian. "Then explain why it just stopped killing us." Across the battlefield, a dozen Unmaker ships faltered, as if confused, as if they remembered something painful. One even withdrew from the front lines. The signal had awakened a fracture in them. Daniel limped to the console. The second voice, who was it? The eye responded slowly. A remnant. The first of your kind to breach beyond time. Long thought dead. Lost during the Exodus. It remembered. Daniel. Remembered what? That even the monsters were once human. On the Jarkai flagship Tessarian, Empress Silatar stood stunned as the architect turned. For the first time, the being moved and spoke to her. "They have done what we could not. They reached into the Unmaker's core and shook it." The battlefield tilted. A new front opened. Within the Unmaker horde, the fractured ones turned on their kin. Silent war. Shadow versus shadow. The architect's voice thundered across space. "Now the end begins, and it may not be your end after all." Daniel grabbed a comm. "All ships, push. The weak ones are ours to save or destroy. If there's even a chance they can turn, we give it." Julian smiled from his console. "I always knew we were the virus." Ryan laughed, eyes wet. "Then let's infect the stars." The final wave surged. Humanity, Jarkai, and the fractured Unmakers side by side. Not peace, not unity, but a chance. In the dark, the signal pulsed once more. The second voice whispered, "I have given you the wound. Now choose what grows from it." Chapter 23. The choice at the end. The war became silence. Not peace, just the stillness after the scream. The fractured Unmakers hovered, torn between instinct and memory. The architect watched, immobile. The fleets waited. And in the center of it all, Daniel floated in a damaged escape module, staring at the core of the final Unmaker cruiser. Its eye was open. It saw him. Ryan's voice crackled through the static. "We've got comms back. Daniel, do you read?" He pressed the mic. "Yeah, I'm here. It's looking at me." Julian from the Vortha Ka. "It hasn't moved in 12 minutes. Sensors say it's processing emotion." Daniel. "Or it's deciding if I should live." Inside the eye chamber, the ancient AI spoke one last time. "The Unmakers are not enemies. They are echoes. But echoes cannot choose. You must." Velthur. "Choose what? Whether to silence them forever, or let them live with what they've remembered." On the Jarkai flagship, Empress Silatar held the activation key for the stellar lance. One blast would erase every Unmaker. It was vengeance, justice, victory, or genocide. She looked to the stars and hesitated. The architect spoke directly to Daniel now. "We were made to build. They were made to destroy. But now, you decide what is made next." Daniel's hand hovered over the broadcast control. He could issue one command, one truth. He spoke into the void. We remember all of it, the hate, the loss, the betrayal. But we also remember the hands that reached out. He looked at the Unmaker cruiser before him. And we choose to reach back. No weapon fired. The stellar lance stayed cold. The fleets lowered their guns, and one by one, the Unmakers powered down their weapons. The architect, ancient and vast, pulsed once, and left, not in retreat, in acceptance. Later, aboard the rebuilt Vortha Ka, Daniel stood before the fleet assembly. "We're not building a new empire," he said. "We're not restoring an old one. We're building something else." Julian. Something that remembers. Ryan. Something that listens. Velthur. Something human. A new beacon was lit, not a warning, an invitation, broadcast across every corner of the known galaxy. We were the last. Now we are the first. Epilogue. In the ashes, stars' years passed. The war became memory, heavy, sacred, unforgotten. The Unmakers, now called the Remnants, drifted in silence across the edge of known space. Some vanished, some stayed. All of them remembered the voice that made them pause. They were not allies, not enemies, just witnesses. The Jarkai chose to dismantle their throne ships. No more empires, no more eternal war. They became wanderers, teachers, story keepers. They told their children not of conquest, but of the day they chose to stop. Humanity rebuilt, not the way they had before, not colonies and banners and fleets, but communities, stations of peace, shared tech with the exiles, open channels with the remnants. They stopped defining themselves by what they survived. They began defining themselves by what they created. Julian Wu became the first ambassador to the fractured ones, those Unmakers who retained sentience. His journal entry read, "They dream now. I've seen it. They don't understand dreams, but they try." Velthur returned to his people, not as commander, but as witness. His words at the Temple of the Last Flame, "The humans are not gods. They are not monsters. They are mirrors." And I saw myself in them. Ryan disappeared into the stars one day, left only a message. "I'm going to find who sent the second voice. Someone reached through time to save us. I need to know why." No one heard from her again, but on certain nights, deep-range satellites picked up laughter across dead space. And Daniel? He never took a crown, never held a title. But wherever he walked, war stopped. Wherever he sat, peace began. The galaxy didn't call him a king. They called him the last human bargain. At the edge of the known galaxy, a monument stands. Not of metal, not of war, but of names. Every species that chose peace. Every soul that remembered the scream and chose silence. Above it, a beacon pulses. A simple message in every language known. We are not what we were. We are what we choose to be. And we remember.